Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to be building a Mediterranean home in Bloxburg, so let's get right into it. Starting off with this build, I knew that I wanted to have the house be on top of like a hillside because that's kind of the style that a lot of Mediterranean houses have, so I knew that I wanted the house to be on top of some sort of hill. I did most of the landscaping by using basic shapes and I've resized them to I think a 2x3. So here you can see I'm kind of starting to build the foundation, and the first floor isn't actually going to be the house, it's just going to be the second and the third floor. And then the second floor is going to slope down to the sidewalk, which is going to be the landscaping. The reason why I wanted to do a Mediterranean house was because I've been wanting to switch up different types of architecture and styles of buildings that I'm going to be making. I've never done this style before, so please keep that in mind, but you may be wondering why I decided to build a Mediterranean house, and I've been wanting to change up my building style and including a bunch of different builds, so I thought it would be fun to experiment with different architecture. I've also been taking Spanish for 3 years, and Spanish I know is completely different than Mediterranean, but I feel like the exteriors kind of have a similar vibe to them, if that makes sense. Even though they have a lot of differences, I do feel like they're kind of similar. If you're wondering why the build may look a little Spanish, then it's probably because I subconsciously mixed some Spanish architecture into the Mediterranean architecture. And as you can see here, I am starting on the landscaping. I basically just resized some cubes to a 2x3 and then I moved those to make a slope. If you see me using the colors that I'm using here, I wouldn't use them just yet because it takes me a while to figure out color schemes that I want for a build, so I change it a lot later, so I wouldn't use the colors that I'm using right now. I don't know why, but for some reason I keep mixing up the transform tool and the resize tool. So I apologize in advance if you're trying to recreate the landscaping because I used a lot of basic shapes and I was having to resize them and transform them a lot. Since I was using a lot more basic shapes than I usually do, I was having to use the tools more than usual, and for some reason I kept mixing them up. I would think by now they would be muscle memory, but because I keep switching them up, I'm gonna end up muscle memorying the wrong tools. I had to cut out a lot of parts of me building the porch because I had an idea that I wanted to bring to life and it wasn't really happening, so I kept trying to change it, which I think I'll just cut it out of the video so you don't have to go back and forth. The craziest thing happened while I was building the exterior. So I was just at my desk and I was just building like I usually do because I film the commentaries later, so I don't have to worry about talking while I'm actually building so I can lock in. But while I was in the middle of building, I heard stuff outside my window, so I turned around to see what the noises were, and I see these two girls running across our lawn. Basically, they ran up to our front door and then they started doing Christmas carols. It was probably like a truth or dare thing, but Christmas has been over for like a month. So
we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
I don't really know what made them decide to do that, but my window is right next to the front door, so I could just see them running across the lawn. Speaking of Christmas, it snowed for the first time in I want to say 4 years, and it was super fun. One of the best parts was that we had school get canceled the entire school week for just 1 day of snow, because that's how little snow that we usually get. I tried making a Coke slushie with the snow. It didn't actually taste that great, it was kind of salty, to be honest, so I only ate a little bit of it. I tried using fresh snow too. I put a cup on one of our outside tables and I let it collect snow and I used that and it still didn't taste that great. I couldn't get the thought out of my head that the saltiness was coming from the lake, so that's why I stopped eating it. For the overhang, I wanted to add a lot more detail. You can see I started to add structurals on top of the overhang, but if you're wondering why I stopped halfway, it's because it was making the build super laggy, so you can just add them at the end of the build. I also tried making custom windows, which I don't really have experience with, so I tried my best to make them and I think they turned out okay. For some reason, I feel like my builds turn out better the less that I think about them. Usually when I go into a build with a blank mind, I have a lot of ideas that I can bring to life, rather than if I spent a few days agonizing over what I can add to the build. I'm the type of person where I'll get the most random ideas at the most random of times, so if I drag a build out for a week, and I just don't really think about it too much, sometimes I'll just have a random idea and then I can write it down. But if I spend a whole day working on a build, I'll be staring at my screen and I just don't know what to add to make it look better. I had a math quiz last week and I didn't want to let it ruin the week off that we had this week, but I'm sure this happens to a lot of you guys. I thought I did pretty good on it, right? And then I checked my grades and it was bad. For some reason, anytime I think I do bad on a quiz or a test, I end up doing good, and then if I think I do good on it, I usually end up doing worse. So moral of the story, I feel like I just need to think that I didn't do too great on most of my quizzes or tests, because anytime, it doesn't happen often, but anytime that I think I do well, the grade ends up being a lot worse than I thought it would. I really don't think it's my fault though. Some of my teachers just don't really teach. Not all my teachers though, I do have some good ones, so shout out to all the good teachers out there. Filming commentaries are so fun though. If you guys haven't filmed one before, I definitely recommend it. Whenever you're just building a build in Bloxburg, for me it can get pretty boring, but once I get to the commentary, I feel like that's what brings the video to life. Also that, in combination with the editing, I feel like both of them just make the videos so much more fun. Usually when I'm about halfway through a build, I start losing motivation, but then whenever I think about what I can talk about for the commentary, and when I think about what I can add to the editing, it makes it a lot easier to finish the build. A lot of the landscaping I didn't film, but it was pretty easy. I basically used the mansard roofs to make different cliffs. I added in-game plants and then decals, and I'll link all the decals that I used in the description. That's pretty much it though, so I hope you guys enjoy the tour.